You're listening to the Precision Shooting Podcast, discussing all aspects of precision and long-range rifle shooting. This episode is brought to you by STS Steel Targets, premium shooting targets and accessories. And now, over to your hosts.
Well, hello and welcome to the Precision Shooting Podcast. This is episode number 14. I'm Rusty and with me is Greg.
How you going, Rusty?
Yeah, pretty good, mate. It's just the two of us in here tonight, and the other boys couldn't make it in, unfortunately. How's your week been, mate? Actually, I haven't seen you for a few weeks. How's it been?
Pretty good. Pretty busy at work. Managed to get out on the weekend, actually.
Oh, right. Tell us more.
Yeah, I went out into the SA Mallee region and went to sort of point the spotlight around a bit, and we got onto a couple of foxes, so we just knocked a couple of foxes over for the farmer up there. So
yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, really good night. Just good to be out there,
Using your trusty 223?
243.
243. Oh, that one. Yeah, right.
No, the old 223, I loved it, but the 243 is slowly taking over.
That's right. I haven't been out with you since you've had that on board.
Yeah, the old trusty BSA. So it's I'm really happy.
Saving your life.
Yep.
Yeah, wonderful. Very good. I managed to get out on Monday just gone, actually, for a bit of a shoot, which was good fun. Did a little bit, I guess. I've got a couple of things to update listeners on. Last podcast I spoke about a scope that I tested that it wouldn't dial well for us. Well, I got it out on Monday and I did a box test for it. And it tracked perfectly. It tracked sensationally. It was putting hole on hole, working around about a 4mm box, and you put the bullets on top of each other. It was doing very, very well, which left me thinking, oh, well, hang on, what was the problem I was having the week before, where it was, you'd have to dial more to actually get the data that you were intending for it to be, and I thought it might have been tracking, but no, the tracking works perfectly, and what it is, and something that I've not encountered to this degree before is a, I guess, number of scopes, particularly cheaper made, but it does happen on all scopes, is that when you dial 10 mil or 2 mil, it may not actually be 2 mil. It could be slightly off. And what I found is with this particular scope, we measured our distance, measured the target, measured the increments of movement, and it had about a 7% elevation correction factor and about a 10% windage correction factor. And so Applied Ballistics, which is the program I use, allows you to actually set that in there. And so I did. And we put those correction factors in, and we were able to get that scope comfortably out to 800 metres on a 260 without really any concern at all. So for the sub $800 scope that it is, and it's a Falcon M25, and I'm happy to say it because it performed very well. Obviously, you just have to be aware that you need to do that correction factor on, well, you really should do that on any scopes. Greg, have you ever experienced that?
No, I haven't experienced it, but mind you, I probably haven't done as many box tests as I should have. You really, just listening to what you're saying, it sort of reaffirmed to me that, maybe I should get out there and just run through that and pick up on a correction factor. But I have been pretty fortunate in, as you can see with the app, you can fix those correction factors in the ballistic app.
Certainly can. Yeah.
I've been fortunate enough that my rifles have been spot on from the outset. So. They should be good, but yeah, it's... well,
let me throw something at you then, because if you're doing the applied ballistics process and you're doing a ballistic calibration on it, you're saying, oh no, the data you predicted is wrong, I'm actually getting this data. What if that data is based on a scope that's got a slight error in it?
Well, what should happen is it should throw you off at a different range. So although it'll ballistically, if you calibrate it onto that real data...
Yep.
If further out, it'll start to be an error.
Yeah,
so it'll tilt your curve slightly in incorrect direction. So you should start to pick it further out. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's ways of picking up on it, but
Certainly.
I'd rather do a box test
Yeah,
like you've
yeah.
done. That's a really good example of how to sort of avoid that issue right from the outset.
And look, realistically, if I had the facilities and the time that particular day, I would have done something where we tracked to a good sort of 10 mil rather than 4 mil to really sort of give a really good reading on it. But for the price that scope was, we also had some advice from the importer about how to... we were having slight resolution issues in close. Out at distance, it was fine. And they suggested to us that we should... because we had a 20 MOA rail on the rifle, we were probably right at the edge of the adjustment range when we were at 100 metres. Because as we dialed up, it was not at its edge of adjustment. It was probably giving a better picture.
Yeah, okay.
And that's what they suggested. And I tried that. I looked at it at 100, but with the elevation a little bit closer to centre, and it came up good.
Yeah, okay.
So that was something I wasn't aware of. That was really good to see.
Yeah, same.
And probably was a little unfair because we had that particular scope there, which is sub $800, and the other scopes we had there on the day were a Carl's, a Schmidt and Bender, and something else. But anyway, it was probably an unfair optical test against it.
Yep.
But I guess when you're talking about a quarter of the price, it performed pretty well. So I've got their other one, their M18, I think it is. I'm going to give it a crack this weekend. Hopefully that doesn't have the same correction factor issue. But as I said, it's not a major issue. It's something that probably good to check on every scope.
Yeah, and probably more so just maybe at the cheaper end. Things that aren't quality assessed.
I've seen it. It's been shown that happens on expensive scopes.
Right.
So it's not just that, but I guess you're right. You're probably going to
frequency might be a little bit greater.
Correct. Yeah. But everything we asked of the scope after finding that out, you did. And as I said, that box test was very impressive. And not just for the scope at the dollars, it was impressive.
Yep.
So which is excellent to see.
Very good.
Yeah. So that was good fun. Is your gun come along anything at all?
Oh, the project? No, it hasn't. I've got everything's sitting there ready to go.
Yeah.
It just comes down to dollars at the moment.
Yeah.
Just waiting till I get the funds put aside, and I'll get it into the gunsmith and get it done.
Yeah.
But at least I've got the barrel. I've got the bottom metal.
Yep.
It's just a matter of just getting the work done. So
getting it done.
Yeah,
right. I think the Vic Practical Rifle Series, I think they've got another match in June, waiting to get the confirmation of the dates. Maybe could we work towards something like that?
Yeah, that'd be sweet. That'd be really sweet.
Because if we put a deadline on it for you, Greg, you're going to get it done, aren't you?
Yeah, put it on Visa, you reckon? But no, look, I'm really keen to get it done and just start to maybe show up at a few of these competitions just for the experience. It's been a long time since I've done any comp shooting, so it'd be nice to sort of just get in there and have a go.
Yeah.
Whether I come, dead last, I don't care. It's just about getting out there and...
I'm going for a DNF. I'm going to
finish.
I'm going to not even finish.
Maybe nothing to lose. Just get
nothing
out there
to
and
lose.
have a go.
Go three stages and then off to the pub.
Yeah, and I think as long as you're shooting, as long as you're out there and getting trigger time, I think that's what it's all about.
Spot on, mate. Spot on. Now, the other thing I found out a little bit on Monday was my 300 Win Mag. Last podcast, we were sort of second guessing it and thinking, was the barrel worn? And I really appreciate we got a bunch of emails with feedback and suggestions and ideas, which is brilliant because sometimes, as you will know, and I'm sure most of our listeners can attest to, when you're close to something, you sort of, oh no, I think I've done that. I think and you get blinded by it a little bit.
So what was the issue?
So it was, it just wasn't grouping, and the groupings were opening up worse and worse and worse over a period of time, to the point where I was, struggling to get like a 4-inch group out of it. It was not great.
I was going to say, I have seen that with an old rifle, because I'm a guy that lets a barrel foul for some period of time, for quite a number of shots, and I won't actually, strip the barrel until the groups start opening up. And I've had barrels really open up and then strip them and they group again.
Well, it was interesting because we had one gentleman who suggested, you just give it a really good clean.
Yep.
And we had others that sort of talked about wearing the throat out and maybe extending the projectiles further and further out, and all really good ideas.
Yeah, all good stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I went out on Monday and I tried a number of things, and I remounted the scope prior to going out because I had some concerns that previously what had happened, the rail had come loose.
Yeah, okay.
So I remounted that, but that was after that I was still having problems.
Yep.
But I thought, you know what, I'm just going to start afresh again. So I redid the whole thing.
Yep.
And I went out and
when you say redid, you like talked everything down just
correct,
for those guys out there.
Restarted the whole sort of mount.
Those guys new to putting rifles together, make sure you get yourself a decent torque wrench too, because torquing everything down is such an essential part of the assembly process. But back to it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I went through that process because I didn't remember the last time, and when you do it consciously, you go, right, I'm going to make sure this is right. And I did that, and then I shot, and it had improved slightly, but still not what I would consider fixed. It was probably halfway there. It was better.
Yeah.
And I shot a few different things, and then also gave it a really good clean, probably for a good about an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Sort
Did
of
they keep coming out green? Like, are you talking stripping here?
No, it wasn't. Yeah, I stripped copper out of it completely, and it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I tell you, I thought it was going to be like just blue.
Yeah.
But no, I did the works on it, and I took it back out, and it had improved again.
Yep.
There seems to be a little diminish in accuracy compared to what it was doing.
Yep.
But that could have been me. That could have been there wasn't any wind I can blame. But they'll just blame me.
Yep.
Comparative, or it could be the barrel is aging.
Yeah.
Which I'm totally okay with, or if the throat is eroding, and perhaps I should seat them a bit deeper.
How many shots have you put through this barrel?
Would be somewhere. I think we talked about over 1,000. 1,200, somewhere around there. So it would be early days.
Yeah, I'd say,
But the other thing that you didn't know that talked with Andrew last time is that it's not had the greatest life. So through with a bunch of we've had just general people come out and shoot it.
Yep.
And so it's been shot after shot after shot after shot after shot.
Yeah, a bit of barrel burning.
Correct.
Style.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's been fired. Out of need more than out of desire to get a huge amount of accuracy out of it. And the barrel is a 20-inch barrel, so it's been copped down a little bit, so it heats up pretty quick.
Yep.
So I was open to the fact that perhaps I have worn through it.
It does sound that way.
It'll be early. But having cleaned it, remounted it, and redid the stock and did everything I could to redo it, it's come pretty good. It's not quite as good as it was, but it's not 4-inch groups. It's under 1-inch groups.
Oh, okay. You pulled it right in.
Yeah, it's pulled it right in. So that
less than a quarter of what it was.
Yeah,
so that's pretty good. Did you check the jump to the lands as well?
That's the one thing I haven't checked.
Yeah.
And if I checked that, I suspect that would have increased.
Yep.
But I've got a bunch of ammo already loaded for it. And
sweet.
Ideally, if I can get them to work, that'll save me a bit of time.
Yeah.
The gun is not designed. It's not. I don't rely on it for a super accurate long-range rifle for me.
What you got now is enough for the use.
Correct. For its purpose of use, it will certainly do the job.
Yep. Oh, sweet.
So anyway, I've learned a bunch of things. That was really good. Thanks for the feedback for those who emailed in, and keep it up, because we're all learning, and we've all got different experiences.
Yeah, it's easy to confuse yourself on the range, isn't it?
You so easy.
You just sit there scratching your head. But you just got to go through that process of elimination, don't you? Yeah.
So it was good. Got out Monday with Daryl from Midplat Firearms, who was on here a few episodes ago, and it was really good shooting. It was very nice to go out there with someone who just had their own agenda to do, and they did their thing, and I did my thing, and it was nice and relaxed, which was very good. Now we've got a couple of questions, Greg, that we mentioned about people contacting us, and we had a couple of questions. So I'll start with this one from Will. Thanks, Will, for your email or your Facebook message, I think this one was. Will's got 2 questions. First, why is it important to keep track of batches of fired shells, assuming they're all the same brand, in long-range shooting? And secondly, a brass casing either new or that has been fired 2-ish times. Perhaps would a brass casing either new or been fired 2-ish times perform the exact same accuracy downrange as a case fired 6 or more times? Shall we tackle the first one? So why is it important to keep track of batches of fired shells, all the same brand?
Yeah, well, I'll give my reasons why I do it,
Yep.
Rusty, and you can jump in and go over the top of that if you've got other reasons. Basically, I keep them all batched together because I'm looking for consistency. So I'll try and keep all the fired batches together. So when I reload, I'm trying to make every round as identical or as consistent with the next one as possible. I guess as they fire, you get your brass walls are going to get a little bit thinner. There's going to be a slightly different, powder area. So you're going to have slight variances in the powder burn itself and therefore muzzle velocity. So for me, I just try and keep everything fairly consistent and group them together. And that's mainly why I do it. And, you get the results on the range if you do it.
Yeah.
That's my experience.
I'm going to agree with you, and perhaps add a couple of things. That consistency is the key and the reason you would do it. But also, so if you're going to, let's say you've shot some brass 3 times and some brass once, well, depending on the cartridge, but you may not trim the brass you've shot once, but you would trim the brass you've shot 3 times.
Yep.
But if that's all mixed together, you measured 5 out of 50 rounds to see whether or not you needed to trim.
Yep.
They all came up because they were all the once fired stuff.
Yeah.
Then you wouldn't trim it, and you could have problems on the range trying to load your stuff that's 3 fired.
Yep.
And so you're keeping them all together to trim them accordingly. Same with annealing or other processes that you'll go through. And some guys I know will clean like stainless steel media every second one, and then clean corn cob, the alternating
they have
one.
Their rituals.
Yeah, various things, and so it's important, obviously, and it's all back to consistency.
Yeah,
that they're treating the same brass in the same manner as they go along the process. So, I think it's useful. The other thing is as well, when you if you've got a batch of brass, and you start to see a cracked neck or two, or that sort of thing starts happening, that batch is
time to go,
and you can remove the whole batch from your collection.
Yep.
With confidence that you're not just waiting for it to all split. You can just move it on.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Seems about right.
Yeah, I'm one of those guys that I don't really load that often. Large amounts in batches, so I just trim every batch,
and that's true as well.
But if I was doing larger amounts like yourself, I'd probably do it, every third, or when it hits the edge of the trim range.
Yeah.
But,
there's nothing wrong with doing it every time. Either way.
Yeah.
Okay, the second question. So would a brass? We'll just run with once fired. Would a brass casing new perform the exact same accuracy downrange as fired case? Actually, let's change that slightly because he does say once or twice. Would a brass casing that has been fired once perform the exact same accuracy downrange as a case fired 6 or more times? So clarify why we changed the question, because if you are shooting brand new brass,
it's not fire formed.
It's not fire formed, and so
you're not comparing apples with apples there.
Yeah, that's right. So for those who are perhaps not aware of what can happen, your chamber is going to be slightly different to what a factory brass is going to come at, and so your first fire, your brass will expand to take up the size of your chamber, and assuming you then neck size rather than full size, you're going to only be adjusting the size of the neck from there on in and leaving it. So keep that in mind from the first fire, from your once fired brass. Is that then going to perform different to your 6th fired brass? What's your thoughts, Greg?
Well, my thoughts are yes, but it'd probably be fairly minor in effect. Possibly it would bother. It'd probably come down to the use. Like, I don't think it would bother hunters too much, whereas I think some of these guys that are shooting flies at at sort of 500-600 metres might get a little concerned about mixing batches. The guys are looking real tight groups for target shooting. But, I don't think it'd be a huge thing myself. But I've never really experimented with that. It'd probably be actually an interesting little experiment.
Yeah.
To put your pet loads into, a few different batches and do a few different groups, like mix the batches.
See how it is.
See whether the consistency drops away or whether it's an almost consistent change in MV as you go out the batches. It would be an interesting experiment.
Yeah, well, that would be my point, I guess, is that if you're batching, as we talked about in the first one, if you're keeping them all together and counting how many times they've been reloaded, your brass should be aging in a very similar way. This is my experience anyway. And so by the time you do get to your 5th or 6th load, while your muzzle velocity, so your data may be slightly varied.
Yeah.
But your performance should actually be, in terms of your accuracy, it should actually be consistent to each other.
And because it just comes down to whether you drop off if your MV should technically drop off.
Yep.
Whether that drops you off your accuracy node or whether you still stay on it. You may see a level of opening up of your group, but it just depends on how your load was set up against your, your accuracy nodes.
I wouldn't think it was
be that much. Would it?
Significant change in muzzle. Like you'd have a change.
Yep.
It actually reminds me of a question that was asked by a friend of ours the other day, and he was looking to try and get his standard deviation down.
Yeah. Yep.
It was good. It was quite reasonable, about 15 feet per second, but he was trying to get it down to 8 or less.
Yep.
And he was talking about buying this and buying that, and which is all good stuff. I mean, trying to get every little bit of detail down as consistent as possible is good. There's nothing wrong with that. Yep. But by saying that as well, there's probably things that we could, certainly for me, could spend my time on that would make more significant difference downrange than a variation of whether I'm on the 2nd or the 6th reload on that brass, or whether I've got a standard deviation of 15 or 10.
Yeah.
Not to say they're not worthwhile goals to try and bring down. Yep. But also if your wind calls need work, that's worth more time. If you haven't got a good rangefinder, or if you perhaps put the money into that, if you're trying to do that sort of thing. Yep. The more you can understand about those things, the better you understand your ballistics program. The more time you spend behind your trigger, pulling that trigger. Those things are perhaps worth more time than we often give them when we're just trying to focus on reloading the best ammo. And I'm not saying that reloading good ammo isn't it is a good thing and trying to knock out every little aspect is possible, but it's also a matter of where you focus your attention.
Yeah, and I think some of those elements you're talking about is I guess more the sort of shooting we do, Rusty, which is sort of hunting based precision shooting.
Yep.
Whereas a target guy, where he knows the range every week. Yep. He's very familiar with his flags, and he's got wind. It might just be other things like environmentals might help. If they get himself a Kestrel for longer range shooting.
And I guess I am coming from it with that precision rifle style mindset.
That's right.
Because but if a friend of mine who shoots bench rest often shoots rimfire, and he's a very good wind caller. Yeah. And he spent a lot of time practicing that side of things. Yep. And he runs a relatively standard 22 when he shoots 22 bench guns. And it's funny because at 50 metres, he doesn't do so well in the comp. He does all right because he's a very talented shooter. Yep. But at 100 metres, he often will be competitive against guns that are worth 5-6 times as much, and guys who have dedicated and measure all their ammo and that sort of gear.
Because the fundamentals.
Because he's a good shooter, and because he reads the wind very, very well. Yep. And it's interesting. He said the only way I'm going to beat them at 50 is to spend more money on it and spend more time on it. But I can beat him at 100 because he's a quality. He's quality at
the external factors come into it more.
That's right. So I guess it does depend on what type of shooting you're doing.
Yep.
And I'm going for a goal this year of shooting a long way, and I'm going to have to spend a lot of time on the trying to get everything up to scratch.
Yep.
In terms of the reloading side of things and standard deviation and other things, but I tell you what, there's the more time you spend out there shooting and learning those environmentals, because wind will drift you far more than your variation in your
that's right,
in your muzzle velocity as well.
Yep.
So I think we answered the question. Anyway, Will,
we sort of went off on a merry tangent.
Anyway, that happens.
Yes.
So, Will, thank you very much for your questions. Now, we've got another one from Brendan, and Brendan asked, so this one's a bit longer, Greg, and this will probably take us through for a little while. So, Brendan asks, trying to find the happy medium between a walk-around hunter and a precision rifle gun. I was looking around for a heavy-barreled rifle for some precision work, and also hunting, meaning I'll be carrying it around for extended periods. Everything from goats up to larger deer species. The T3 compact tactical rifle struck some interest, which is a T3 CTR. What are your thoughts on the 260 Rem with a 20-inch barrel? Is it long enough to stabilise and exploit the round for acceptable performance? The rifle's also chambered in 308, so I'm interested to know your thoughts on the pros and cons of each option. Also, any other off-the-shelf options in both caliber and rifle are welcome. I'm left-eye dominant but somewhat ambidextrous behind the gun. He also did say in his email to lay off the southpaws.
The lefties.
But I said, when Dan's here, he can back him up, and when he's not, well, it's...
Yeah, it's open slather.
Absolutely.
Yeah, righto.
Absolutely. Anyway, so that's the question. And I guess it's not an uncommon question either. The reason we'll spend a bit of time on it, because guys are often looking for a compromise.
Yeah.
Trying to achieve
dual tasks.
That's right. And any time you do that, you're sacrificing both of them.
Yeah.
But not to say it's impossible.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just depending which way you're going to lean, whether you're going to go more along the precision rifle style of stuff, or whether you're going to go more along the lightweight hunter, which is, I guess, at the basis of what he wanted to do.
Yeah. Yeah, with something that's usable to reach out.
Yeah, so I guess cartridge is probably the first discussion, which we've talked about several times on various things. And look at those the friends of ours who are going to be listening to this, as soon as we mentioned 260 and 308 in the same conversation, are going to groan because it's an endless discussion that we have about it. And this is perhaps slightly different to the discussion we often have about it. And we probably should do one episode where we just go hell for leather on the 260, 308 discussion.
308, just get the fanboys going.
just to provoke some response. But look, I've got both cartridges, and both of them I think are very appropriate and apt. And my usual recommendation, particularly for the precision rifle side of things, that if someone is reloading, the 260 makes more sense because it deflects the wind in a better way, and the ballistics on it are better, and therefore you're putting everything in your favour to minimise the effects of wind and gravity, and therefore should get a high percentage of shots on target, basically. But if you are running factory, it's an expensive way to run a gun. There's really good quality 308 ammo out there for roughly half the price that will do the job very well. You've just got a slightly higher margin for error with your 308. Not to say I won't do it. Of course I will, because I can do it with mine quite regularly. They're a good gun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know with me, I've got a 308, and that's the one I'm going to rebarrel into 6mm. But, I enjoyed that rifle. Basically learnt the fundamentals on it. And 308, you can just get out there and start shooting, and it's a solid caliber. I think, reflecting back on that analysis we did, a 6mm, 6.5mm cartridges, just those calculations, they stand out. Although we didn't look at the 260 cartridge, we looked at the Creed and the by 47 lap. Yep. But they're ballistically the 6 and the 6.5s really stand out in the crowd.
Yeah, certainly.
It's just all about the cartridge you want to put behind it, how hard you want to push it.
Absolutely, and the 308 is certainly not hamstrung, but there's a reason the guys in the PRS are running the 6 and 6.5s because they make sense in that environment.
Yep.
However, we're tackling a different environment here.
That's very true.
So we're now talking about, well, I guess he quantifies it here from goats up to the larger deer species. Yep. Now, we know that Brendan's in SA, and the deer species he's probably going to encounter here are going to be fallow and red and a few others, but that's fallow's going to be the majority for sure, and perhaps some of the bigger stuff. Now, one thing is I know some of those larger deer, you won't be able to use the 260 in Victoria.
That's correct.
So if he's got any ambition, which we've talked about before, if you've got any ambition to shoot larger deer in Victoria, the 260s from a legal standpoint not going to work. Yeah. We can have that argument whether it will work from an actual standpoint, but that's not in play here. Is if he wants to go to Victoria, or if that's ever on the cards, then the 308 is obviously
the only option.
The only option. Yeah, certainly. For SA, I think that the 260 will certainly perform with the right projectile on most any game.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah, certainly. So I guess it's going to that is going to depend. If he's leaning more towards that precision rifle side of things and he's reloading, you'd be hard pressed to go past the 260.
Yeah.
If he's not reloading, it's 308. Sort of, unless he's got bucket loads of money to buy ammo.
Yeah.
But if there's potentially trips to Victoria or perhaps some bigger pigs on the menu, that sort of thing, then the 308's going to have perhaps a little bit of an advantage in some areas. So I guess he's going to have to tell us what works, and either one will do the job. Yeah. In most scenarios.
Yep. No, I'll just agree with what you said, Sam. That pretty much explains it. My views as well.
Cool. Now the other thing here he's talking about is, it's got another couple of questions. Is what gun to use, and so he's brought up the T3 CTR. Mm-hmm. Are you familiar with that one?
No, I'm not actually.
So for those the listening and for your benefit, it's a Tikka T3, which I know you're very familiar with.
Yep.
With a like a varmint sort of barrel, maybe just a touch under.
Yep.
Profile wise, it's a 20-inch barrel. It's a 10-round mag. The mag's based off the Seiko TRG mag, so it's but it's a 10-round. I reckon it's a double stack off memory. Comes with a rail, comes with a larger bolt knob, and comes with like the same cheek piece on a varmint stock, but not the wider forend. If that makes sense. Yep. Yeah. So it really is a sort of a hybrid. It's almost sort of designed for this purpose, in my opinion. It's a lighter weight gun because it's got that shorter barrel. It keeps center of gravity sort of more central rather than forward. Yep. It can play the tactical game because of the part to do with the larger magazine, 10-round mag, and the bolt handle is very comfortable to cycle. Yep. It is threaded as well, so muzzle brake is a very easy fit. Yep. On there, and with Brendan's question about is there anything else? Well, I mean, there's other options. There's a Savage Scout and the Ruger Scout, which would be great for the hunting side of things. Yep. But perhaps lack a few things in the precision rifle side of stuff. Their actions aren't quite so smooth, I've found. And I mean, hard pressed to go past the Tikka in this sort of price. Well, assuming this is a price bracket he's talking about. So I'm not sure there'd be too many other options off the shelf. There's probably not too many other
in left as well.
Oh yeah, well, he says he's ambidextrous. Actually, I'm not sure if the CTR's coming left.
Because Tikka usually do left in most things.
No, in some things. Only some.
Okay, righto.
That would be one to. I don't know. I couldn't tell you now. I'd have to look it up. Anyway, that's something someone can tell us, or we'll have a look afterwards. The other question he's got there is a 20-inch barrel based around a 260.
Yeah. Now, you've got experience with 20-inch barrels, haven't you? I haven't actually had a 20-inch barrel. I've just had 26s.
For everything?
26, 28. I've not gone that short.
Yep.
What's your experience going that short, especially on the sort of larger cartridges?
Look, and we've talked about it before, and it's known. The shorter barrels will just obviously produce a bit of a velocity drop. necessarily as massive as some people think, but it will certainly, sort of have a drop in velocity. And what I guess you've got to realise, if you're going to go down the 20-inch barrel, your transonic range is going to be closer than it was if you were on a 26-inch barrel. Now, a 20-inch barrel on a 260 is probably okay, but Brendan's going to realise that is not going to be pushing it quite as far as
some of the other guys,
some of the other guys. So it's just it's going to be a limitation you have to be aware of, and we talked at the top of this about the compromise, and something's got to give, and that's perhaps going to be more favourable for the hunting side of things. Now I've run a couple of 308s with 16.5 and 17-inch barrels, and in a hunting platform and shooting out to sort of 500 metres on goats, didn't lose anything. That the goats fell over. They did what they meant to do. And we still managed to get that gun out to 990 metres. So it's still capable out at that distance. That wasn't the easiest to get out there, but it still worked. So the short barrels are certainly no dramas, and generally inherently to a shorter barrel, it's more rigid, therefore it's got less movement in it, therefore it should be more accurate. Not always true, but the theory is there. So I nothing wrong with a short barrel at all. Just being, as long as you're aware of its limitations. And I chopped my 300 Win Mag down to 20-inch, being fully aware of what limitations it was. And it did give me the reduction in muzzle velocity about what I thought it was going to be. Which was quite okay. Still capable, sort of a 1.2K gun. When it was shooting well, and it's shooting well again now. So there are other errors there. So anyway, that's my thoughts on that side of things. You haven't done much with the shorter barrels?
No. Like I said, I've just had all traditional barrels, barrel lengths to date. So just don't have any input there.
That's all right with that. The CTR, Brendan's going to be probably, I think, going to suit your purpose if you are looking for a bit of a hybrid between the two. Worth a crack. I know sort of 3 or 4 guys with them, and they're all pretty happy with them. What I will say about the CTR is that if you're thinking about changing the stock on them, perhaps don't. That's not the one to grab. I mean, the benefit of the CTR and what you pay a bit of extra money for is the 10-round magazine in there. If you're going to change the stock out, most likely it's going to be a ticker stock, which will have a stock designed for a ticker with a standard ticker inlet, or designed to take a AI magazine for a chassis or something like that. And you've then sort of gone backwards from your benefit of buying it for the CTR for that 10-round mag. You'd almost be better off to save yourself some money, buy the Ticker T3 varmint, bring that barrel down shorter, and then throw it into whichever stock you intend it for. I've seen someone do that, and then sort of what was the reason of buying
getting
the
a
CTR?
barrel chopped is fairly cheap in the scheme of things, isn't it?
And it's not a hard
chop
process.
and crown.
Correct. So not overly difficult and fairly readily available to get done. And 20 inches would be fine to bring it down to. Very good. Well, that's hopefully that's answered your question, mate. And guys, we also fully happy to take any advice and ideas on board as well. So if you've got any thoughts on those questions, send it through and we'll pass it on to the guys who are relevant, or we'll bring it up if it's something else to talk about. That would be wonderful. Now, one other thing we probably should mention is that we're going to be in Sydney in June.
Yes.
We're going to SHOT Expo, Greg and I, along with Sean from STS and Steve from Precision Rifle Products. Both guys have been on the show. So we're going to be over there. We're going to try and record a few things
for the
podcast, perhaps, while we're over there.
Sounds good.
Which will be good fun.
Might be able to grab a few interesting people to have a chat to.
Sean and Steve are pretty, interesting and could be an appropriate word. Anyway.
Sounds good.
I hope that they heard that. So I guess the other thing is, if anyone is in Sydney, I know it's ages away, it's June, but if anyone is in Sydney and wants to say good day and catch up and talk about shooting, which we seem to be able to do, I guess.
Always keen for a chat.
Come let us know you're going to be there at the SHOT Expo in June, which if I turn around I'll be able to see the dates. It's June the 25th and 26th I'm going to get this wrong. The Rose Hill Race Course or something like that?
No, that's correct. I looked
That
it
is
up.
correct?
Yep,
Yeah,
you are right.
Out near Parramatta somewhere.
I believe you.
Yeah, I was there 2 years ago. I don't remember the place, but I remember it was near Parramatta. That's all I remember. Anyway, so that should be good fun. A few days up there. And a couple other things to let you guys know as we wrap up. We've got a couple of guys coming on the show, hopefully over the next few weeks as well. A few good interviews, which is pretty exciting. I won't necessarily say who it is because in case we don't quite get there, but it's a few guys from different states as well. Now that we've worked out how to use Skype, we're going to
look out, going international, going interstate and international.
We're going interstate. We are going international. Actually, I will mention this one. We're really hoping to catch up with some guys, and they actually have offered to do it at a PRS event. So I won't say who. It's going to be exciting to talk to them about it. But they've said, oh, look, how about we do it while we're at a PRS competition? We've got a couple coming up in the next couple of months. Oh, wow. And I thought that'd be cool. And they'll grab whoever they can while they're there to come and have a chat with us and see how we go.
That'd be a real treat.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that. We'll see how we go with that. And a few other guys in Australia as well. So the other thing I guess we wanted to put out there is if there's anyone you'd like us to interview, well, we're willing to ask them if they'll come on the show. So let us know, and we'll see who we can get on. If there's a topic or a question or something you want answered, and you think there's someone out there we should be asking, because there's plenty of people out there who know far more than us. So we've got to get the info from them.
Yep, that's a big one. We'd like to hear from you guys. So if you've got any questions on anything to do with precision shooting, certainly jump on Facebook and let us know. Yeah,
and then we'll just make Andrew answer them all.
Yeah, that's the
what
plan. We've been doing. Yeah,
perfect.
It works really well.
Excellent. All right, Greg. Thanks heaps for coming in.
Cheers.
Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll catch up with you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Precision Shooting Podcast. To continue the discussion, check out our Facebook page. And for more information, head to our website, www.precisionshootingpodcast.com.au. This episode was brought to you by STS Steel Targets, premium shooting targets and accessories.